You never even had them. That is what everyone says. You two were never together, so why are you so hurt? And you sit there, nodding, pretending that makes sense. But deep down, something in you is screaming. Because this pain does not feel like nothing. It feels like everything. And the worst part, you cannot even justify it. You cannot post about it. You cannot cry to your friends without someone rolling their eyes. Because according to the world, you lost something you never had. But your heart did not get that memo. And yet here you are, feeling something that sits heavier than any heartbreak you have actually been through. Something you cannot explain to people without them tilting their head and saying, "But you were never together." As if the heart keeps records of official transactions. As if you need a title for a loss to be real. You know what you felt, and you know it is not nothing. It started quietly, the way these things always do. You noticed them, not all at once, but gradually, the way morning light fills a room. Something about the way they talked, the way they remembered small things. The way being near them felt easier than being near most people. You did not decide to feel it. It was already there before you had words for it. And then something began to build. Not just attraction, something more patient than that. You started paying attention in ways you did not announce. You remembered what they mentioned in passing. You noticed their moods before they said a word. You were already thinking about them during the spaces between conversations. And it felt good. That kind of quiet focus on someone. It felt like something worth protecting. You told yourself you were being careful. You were not going to rush. You were going to let it unfold. And in the meantime, you were present. Genuinely present. Not performing. Not angling for something. Just there, in the realest way you knew how to be. And they felt that. You could see it. The way they leaned on you. The way they called when things got hard. The way they said, "You always know what to say." The way they told you things they did not tell other people. You were not imagining it. The closeness was real. The warmth was real. What was building between you felt real. So you stayed. Of course you stayed. Why would you walk away from something that felt like that? And then came the words. Or maybe not even words. Maybe a moment. A comment about someone else they liked. An introduction where they called you their best friend. A conversation where they said plainly that they thought of you as a brother, a sister, a person they could always count on. In that particular tone that meant everything except what you needed it to mean. And something shifted. Not loudly. Just quietly. The way a door closes in another room. You smiled. Of course you smiled. What else could you do in that moment? You said the right things. You meant some of them. But underneath the surface, something was happening that you did not have a name for yet. A kind of internal stillness that was not peace. You went home and could not fully explain what you were feeling. It was not anger. It was not even sadness exactly. It was something more disorienting than either. A feeling that the ground had moved slightly and no one else had noticed. Here is what was actually happening inside you. You had built something, not just hope. An entire internal world around this person. A world where the warmth you felt was a preview of something more. Where their trust in you meant something beyond friendship. Where every conversation was a kind of closeness that was going somewhere. You had been living, quietly and privately, inside a version of this relationship that existed entirely in the space between what was said and what you had learned to hope. And now that world was not going to happen. That is what the grief was. Not just the loss of a person. You had not lost them. Not just the loss of a possibility. Possibilities end all the time. It was the sudden collapse of an entire interior life you had been building without realizing it. The quiet loss of a future you had never been promised, but had somehow, without meaning to, begun to live inside. There is something that no one says about this kind of pain. When a relationship ends, you have something to show for it. A history, a shared language, a set of real moments that existed in the world. The grief has a shape. People understand it. They let you feel it without questioning whether it counts. But this grief has no receipt. You cannot show anyone the evidence of what you lost because what you lost was never visible to begin with. It lived inside you. Every tender thing you felt alone. Every hope you carried privately. Every time you imagined a future, you imagined it in silence. And when it ends, when the door closes, you are left grieving something that, to everyone else, never existed. You cannot call it a breakup. You cannot ask for time to heal. You cannot explain, without sounding like you were foolish for hoping, that what happened to you was real and it hurts and you need a moment. So you do what you always do. You fold it inward. You say you are fine. You stay in the friendship because leaving would require explaining why, and explaining why means admitting how much you felt, and admitting how much you felt means making it real in a way that also makes you vulnerable in a way you are not ready for. You stay. And somehow that makes it harder. Because now you are asked to be close to the very thing that is hurting you, to sit beside them and listen warmly, to be the safe person while quietly being the one who is not safe at all right now, to continue giving the kind of presence that costs you something, in a dynamic that will not give you what you actually need back. And you do it. Because you care about them. Because the friendship is real even if it is not enough. Because walking away would feel like punishing them for something that is not their fault. So you stay, and you give, and you smile, and somewhere in a quiet part of you, something waits. Not dramatically, just patiently. Hopefully. And every time it is disappointed again, you learn a little better how to hide that. Here is the thing about that waiting. It is not weakness. It is not delusion. It is loyalty directed somewhere it cannot land. You had genuine feeling. You were not wrong to have it. What happened was not a failure of your judgment. It was simply the most painful mismatch the heart can experience. To give your trust to a connection that was real, and to discover that real does not always mean mutual. There is a quiet question that lives underneath all of this, and you have probably felt it even if you have not said it out loud. Not why didn't they choose me? Something older than that. Something that sounds more like, was I ever actually seen? Did any of it mean what I thought it meant? Or was I feeling something entirely alone in a room I thought we were both standing in? That is the part that lingers, not the rejection. Rejection has a shape. But the uncertainty, the retroactive blur it casts on every warm moment you shared. You start to review things. Was that closeness real? Did they ever feel even a fragment of what I felt? Was I the only one? Usually, you were not the only one. Usually something was real. The warmth was genuine. Their care for you was not performance. They meant what they said when they said you mattered to them. The problem is not that none of it was real. The problem is that it was real in a category that was not the one you were hoping for. And that is somehow harder to hold than if it had been nothing. You are going to be okay. Not in the way people say it when they want you to hurry up and feel better. In the slower, quieter way. The way where you eventually stop reviewing the memories for evidence of what went wrong. The way where their name stops landing in your chest like a held breath. The way where the friendship, if it survives, finds a new shape that costs you less. This kind of pain does not mean you were foolish. It means you felt something real and let yourself be open to where it might go. That is not a mistake. That is not weakness. That is the only way anyone ever gets close to anything worth having. The fact that it did not go where you hoped does not erase what it was. You were not wrong to hope. You were just human. And the heart does not ask permission before it invests. It does not keep records of what is official. It only knows what it felt. And what you felt was real. Even if no one gave it a name. Even if you are the only one who will ever fully know it happened. That counts. If this felt less like a video and more like someone quietly reading your own thoughts back to you, you are not alone in that. There are others who needed to hear exactly this. If you want more of these, the kind of conversations that say out loud what usually stays unspoken, subscribing to this channel is enough.